8th of March 2023. This is one of those what the fuck moments, and the title is What the fuck Nord Stream. Now, initially when that Nord Stream pipelines were blown up, the first things that came out was blaming it on Russia. But the people around the world asked one question: why would Russia blow the pipelines up if it can only close the tap on their side? And the second thing is, why would Russia destroy infrastructure that brings revenue to Russia? And the third thing is, why would Russia destroy such a valuable asset? And that story about Russia, did it die down? And there was a lot of questions. Who did it? And if you remember back, nobody wanted to do a formal investigation. The Norwegians and the Swedish, they did the investigation on their own, and then they came out and said they're not going to give the results because it will be embarrassing, which was absolutely stunning. The Germans did an investigation and they came up and said they don't know. But never did anyone allow the Russians to be part of the investigation teams. The Russians know who did it, and I think they are sitting on the information just to wait and see how this thing pan out and whether someone is going to come clean on it. They have the information. And then Seymour Hersh came out with his burner of a report. He's a highly esteemed journalist with a long history behind him of quality journalism. And he brought out a report with a lot of details, and he fingered the White House and a group of people around Biden. And what was most important is that what was done there was done in cooperation with the Norwegians, and there are also indications that the British were involved. The problem with the Seymour Hersh report is that report means big problems for a lot of the guys, including Biden. And they're talking about treason and things like that. But that report got zero airtime from the Western media. Zero. It took a few days to start working its way into the German media, and up to today the German media and the German parliament has discussed it, and there are people asking a lot of questions in Germany about this, because the reality is this was a major act of sabotage. And from the Seymour Hersh report, it would look like America sabotaged a NATO partner and an ally pipeline, and the Norwegians, which is also part of NATO, assisted. That is an ugly thing. What astounds me is the fact that Schultz is dancing around the Nord Stream issue. And there are reports that are coming out now that are clearly indicating that the German economy is in deep trouble. Van der Crazy made a lot of stories about that they managed to shake off the dependency on the Russian gas, but what she does not say is that the alternatives is costing 4 and 6 and 8 times more. But that's another story. And then, 2 days ago, over the weekend, Olaf Scholz all of a sudden took a flight to Washington. No big press entourage, nothing. Quick. Went in, saw Biden at the White House, and apparently less than an hour and he was out, and he was back on the plane, back to Germany. And a lot of questions are being asked about that visit. There was no formal press release after the meeting, nothing. My theory is Schultz got to Biden and Biden said to him, we've got a problem. This is pipeline. And Schultz said, yes, it's beginning to heat up in Germany. I'm going to get burned here. And Biden said, don't worry, we're going to blame Ukraine. Now, this is where we sit today. Let's get to the news. And look at this meme, and you have to laugh. We're not Navy SEALs. We now identify as a pro-Ukrainian group. How is that? And I think it's very appropriate in the day and age that we live. Then we get Stoltenberg. We have not been able to determine who was behind the Nord Stream sabotage. We must wait for investigations to conclude. Stolty trying his best. They know who did it. They know very well who did it. And then the first report came out in the New York Times. Intelligence suggests pro-Ukrainian group sabotage pipelines, US official says. New intelligence reporting amounts to the first significant known lead about who was responsible for the attack on the Nord Stream pipelines that carried natural gas from Russia to Europe. There, and it's in the New York Times. And rapidly, all the Western papers picked up on this story. And US allegations of the involvement of a pro-Ukrainian group in the sabotage at Nord Stream are false, according to the military expert retired Colonel Victor Litovkin. American and Norwegian military equipment took part in blowing up the Nord Streams, so it's ridiculous to believe that the mythical pro-Ukrainian forces took part in the sabotage. Just understand, American arrogance, American snobbery lies in this. They consider this world to be idiots, and no one is able to think sensibly and rely on concrete facts, the expert said. And then, I like this girl, Maria Zakharova, came out with this burner. I wouldn't be surprised if Western investigation reveals Nord Stream pipelines were destroyed by demolition dolphins who escaped from Crimea into Ukraine. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Zakharova on the Western claims that pro-Ukrainian group may be behind sabotage. There's a comment here. Now all those Western stories about trained dolphins make perfect sense. And then there's more from the Kremlin. Russia reacts to the media reports on Nord Stream sabotage. Western media reports seeking to identify those responsible for the explosions that ruptured the Nord Stream 1 and 2 gas pipelines have the hallmark of a synchronized misinformation campaign, Kremlin Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov said on Wednesday. On Tuesday, the New York Times reported, citing US officials and unspecified new intelligence, that a pro-Ukrainian group may have been behind the September attack on the pipelines, which connected Russia and Germany under the Baltic Sea. The outlet's sources also claimed that no American or British nationals were involved in the incident. On the same day, Germany's ARD broadcaster SWR Radio and the Zeit newspaper claimed that German investigators looking into the incident had found that the yacht reportedly used in the attack belonged to a Polish-based company owned by 2 Ukrainians. And there it goes. Zeit Online. Nord Stream investigations traces lead to Ukraine. Investigators have identified the boat from which the Nord Stream attacks were carried out. Apparently it was rented by a company owned by Ukrainians. The sabotage at Nord Stream was carried out by a team of 6 people. Their nationality is unknown. They used fake passports. And the story begins to run. But there's a lot of people in the world that is laughing at this. They're laughing at this. And Then we get the German defense minister claims that pro-Ukrainian group behind Nord Stream sabotage may have consequences for Western support to Ukraine. And there's the first one. This is how, my personal opinion is this is how Biden is planning to get himself out of the Ukraine. Western intelligence agencies knew about the Ukrainian trace in sabotage on the Nord Stream and the Nord Stream 2 gas pipelines a week after the explosions, the British newspaper The Times reported. According to the authors of the material, NATO tried to prevent this information from becoming public, as this would lead to an aggravation of relations between Ukraine and Germany. The publication also says that European intelligence knows the name of the private sponsor of the sabotage. His identity is not disclosed by the security services, but he is a wealthy Ukrainian who allegedly has no ties to President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trying to buffer the problem that I have is, if it was a private sponsor, how the hell did he manage to do it at the time when there was NATO exercises going there? And then again, that German article about explosions at Nord Stream should not affect aid to Kiev. This was stated by German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, commenting on reports of a new possible perpetrators of sabotage on the gas pipelines. The American-made media claim that pro-Ukrainian groups could have committed a terrorist attack on the pipelines. The likelihood of both is equally high, Pistorius said. The head of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, Reznikov, in turn said that the Ukrainian special services were not involved in the explosion at Nord Stream. These guys have got a problem now. They are batting invisible balls, and they're going to struggle. The West kept quiet about Nord Stream attack to protect Ukraine. The effects of the explosion in September could be seen on the surface of the Baltic Sea. European intelligence knew about Ukraine linked to Nord Stream sabotage. The Times. Guys, they are setting those guys up like you cannot believe, but we've seen many of these mass information campaigns driven by the White House. The Times reports that the sponsor of the attack is also known to EU intelligence and is allegedly a private entrepreneur from Ukraine. The outlet notes that NATO did not disclose this information, as it did not want to provoke a negative response from German public. On Tuesday, the New York Times reported that the pro-Ukrainian group could be behind the terrorist attacks on Nord Stream. Listen to what they are doing. Listen to what they are doing. But they are vague. The problem is, there's not many people in this world that could dive that deep. So, Seymour Hersh, his article still stands. And here's the Times front page. Zelensky supporters in frame for a pipeline blast. US intelligence believes pro-Ukrainians blew up the pipeline. So the British, the Times, like their colleagues from New York Times, consider its readers to be complete idiots, taking as the main news the crazy story that the Nord Streams were blown up by a small pro-Ukrainian group that is not associated with any governments. Only 6 people on a yacht owned by 2 Ukrainians entered the Baltic Sea from Poland, laid the most complex mines at great depths and set them into action, a trifling matter for inexperienced supporters of Zelensky. Well, if you believe this nonsense, you'll believe anything. And then Gonzalo Lira sent this tweet. Zelensky's regime can deny its involvement in the Nord Stream pipeline terrorist attack all it wants, but it won't matter. Clearly, a very strong faction of the deep state wants to blame Ukraine so the West can pull out of the Ukraine disaster. And I must agree. I think Gonzalo is nailing it with that one. And let me end it now with this. Keep this picture in your mind. Zelensky says, Grandpa, when are you going to send Americans to fight in Ukraine? And Biden replies, Kavensky, where I'm going to fight for you, because you're a terrorist. You blew up Nord Streams. And Zelensky, what the fuck? There, in this meme, there is the key. Thank you for your support. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share this. Thank you.